Hello everyone, today we are going to discuss about the topic repeater controls in ASP.NET. Let us get into the session. The objectives we are going to discuss here is uses of repeater control, parameters, templates and how to implement repeater controls in ASP.NET. Introduction. The repeater control is used to display a repeated list of items that are bound to the control. That is, one control will be repeated again using the same variables that are used before. The repeater control may be bound to a database table, an XML file or another list of items. Repeater is a data bind control. Data bind controls or container controls. Data binding is a process of creating a link between the data source and the presentation UI to display the data. ASP.NET provides rich and wide variety of controls which can be bound to the data. That is, in ASP.NET there are variety of controls that is used to bound the data. Next we are going to discuss about the uses of repeater control. It is same as grid view and data grid view. That is, the repeater control is similar to the grid view and data grid view. But somehow it is different from data grid view and grid view. Repeater control is lightweight and faster to display data when compared with grid view and data grid. That is, compared to data grid and grid view, repeater control is quite lightweight and faster. By using this control, we can display data in custom format, but it's not possible in grid view or data grid view, and it does not support for paging and sorting. By using this control, we can display data in custom format that's not possible in grid view or data grid view, and does not support for paging and sorting. That is, repeater control does not support paging or sorting. The repeater control works by looping through the records in your data source and then repeating the rendering of its template called item template. That is, repeater control uses template to provide the access to the data source and repeating the rendering of its templates. Now we are going to discuss about the parameters we have used in the repeater control. In this list of files using ASP.NET, we have used repeater control. The parameters, the commonly used parameters for the repeater control are all the following. ID specifies a unique identifier for the repeater control. The very important parameter for the repeater control is ID. ID specifies a unique identifier for the repeater control. This can be used to reference the control programmatically. The second parameter is runNet. RunNet specifies whether the control is processed in the example below. The control is processed on the server side. The third parameters we are going to discuss here is data source. Specifies the data source for the repeater control. It can be set to an object, a collection or a data source control. Specifies the data source for the repeater control. It can be set to an object, a collection or a data source control. Therefore, there are three important parameters in ASP.NET we have discussed. The first one is ID, the second one is runNet and the third one is data source. Now we are going to discuss about the templates that are used for repeating the rendering, and that's how the repeater control access the records in our data source. The 5 important templates we use in our repeater control are: repeater has 5 inline template to format it. The first one is header template, second one is footer template, third one is item template, fourth one is alternating item template, fifth one is separator template. Header template. This template is used for elements that you want to render once before your item template section. The second template is footer template. This template is used for elements that you want to render once after your item template section. Every header template or footer template should be placed after the item template section. The third one is item template. This template is used for elements that are rendered once per row of data. This is used to display records. The fourth template we are going to discuss here is alternating item template. This template is used for elements that are rendered every second row of data. This allows you to alternate background colors. It works on even number of records only. The fifth template we are going to discuss here is separator template. It is used for elements to render between each row, such as line breaks. So the 5 templates we have discussed here are: first one is header template, footer template, item template, alternating item template, and selector template. Now we are going to discuss more about the repeater control. Repeater control is used to display back-end result set. That is, repeater control displays the back-end result set. It is used to display multiple tuples. Repeater control is an unformatted control. The repeater control is a basic templated data bound list. Repeater control can be called as data bound list. It has no built-in layout or styles, so you must explicitly declare all layout, formatting and style tags within the controls template. That is, repeater control has no formatting, layouts or styles, so it must be explicitly declare all layout, formatting, styles tags within the controls template. The next point we are going to discuss about the repeater control is, the repeater control is the only web control that allows you to split markup tags across the templates. So we can split the markup tags across the templates using repeater control in web technology. To create a table using templates, include the beginning table tag using table tag in the header template. To create a table in the header template of repeater control, we have to use the tag table, a single table row tag tr in the item template, and the end table tag table / in the footer template. So create a table in the header template, we have to use the table tag. In the item template, we have to use the tr tag table row tag, and in the footer template, we have to use the closing table tag. The repeater control has no built-in selection capabilities or editing support. You can use the item command even to process control events that are raised from the templates to the control. So these are the 4 points we have discussed more about the repeater control. Next we are going to see how to use a repeater control in the ASP.NET. We have to use scriptlets for data access. Data bind control can display connected and disconnected model. Data bind control have data bind method and data bound event. Data bind item created event, data bound event. System.common.data namespace db data record class. Controls child control. Every data bind control implement collection. The data in data source is bound to repeater using its data bind method. Once the data is bound, the format of each item is defined by a template like item template. So now we are going to see how we are going to use a repeater control in ASP.NET. Create a new website with name repeater control. So we are going to, first step, we are going to create a new website named repeater control. Double click the web configuration file and write the following code in it. By clicking the web configuration file, we are going to write the following code. The first tag we have to use is connection strings. Next one is we have to add the name constr connection string. Initial catalog is equal to puran. Data source mcn002. Integrated security SSPI. Then we have to close the connection string. So these are the 2 steps of code we are going to implement for using the repeater control in ASP.NET. Next we are going to discuss how we are going to bind the repeater to the data source. That is, we have to bind the repeater control to our data source. We can use the following process to bind the repeater control to a data source. In the code behind file, write the necessary code to retrieve data from the data source. In the code behind the file, default.aspx.cs, write the necessary code to retrieve data from the data source. Assign the retrieved data to the repeater's data source property. For example, my repeater dot data source is equal to my data. So here my data is the data we have given, that is binded to the data source of our repeater control. So my repeater dot data source is equal to my data is used to retrieve our data and give it to the repeater's data source. The last step, call the data bind method to bind the data to the repeater. Now we have assigned our data to the repeater data source. Now we have to bind the data source. So call the data bind method to bind the data to the repeater. Now our data source will be binded to the repeater. This is how a repeater control is implemented in ASP.NET. So we have so far we have discussed what is a repeater control, the uses of repeater control, the parameters we have used. There are 3 parameters: ID, runnet and data source. We discussed the parameters. Next we discussed about the templates, 5 inline templates, important templates used in ASP.NET in repeater control. The first one is header template, the second one is footer template, the third one is item template, the fourth one is alternating item template, and fifth one is separator template. Next we discussed a few important points about the repeater control. Next we discuss about the data bind control. Also we discuss how to use a repeater control in ASP.NET. We have 4 steps of code. We have to use the tag connection strings. The information we have to provide are name, connection string, data source and integrated security. The last topic we discussed is binding the repeater to the data source. So far we discussed about the repeater data source in ASP.NET. I hope you are clear. Thank you.